Hi everybody, welcome back to my LinkedIn Lives. I'm Jasmine Navarro, certified wellbeing expert, working for educational institutions and companies, helping them support wellbeing challenges. And as you know, every week I interview different experts. And today I'm super excited to be interviewing Ben. Hi Ben, thank you so much for coming.
Hello. It's a pleasure. It's lovely to be here.
No, it's lovely to see you again. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, so I'm Ben. I am based in central London. I have been for most of my adult life. I have been in the hairdressing industry for the last 21 years. And I also run a bereavement charity that I founded with a friend of mine in 2018. So I do two things.
Amazing. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that. And today you chose this title, which I absolutely love, The Power of Conversation. Can you tell us what made you choose this and what it means for you?
Yeah, so as I said, I have two jobs, and both of my jobs are around connecting with people and holding conversation. So at 16 years old, when I left school, I didn't really have any prospects, and my mum was keen on the idea of me getting into the hair industry. And I'd always been quite a sociable person, I suppose, but this was where I started to learn about talking about how powerful conversations can be. And I feel like the last 21 years has really kind of prepared me for the work that I do now with the new normal, with the charity. You know, we hold peer-to-peer support groups for bereaved adults to be able to come together and speak about their experiences.
Wow.
And so for me, conversation has been my entire career. And, you know, the impact of holding space for people and having open and honest conversations and debates, whatever that looks like to you, has been, you know, my entire work.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. And yeah, actually, that makes sense. Two different areas that you work in, and actually, conversation is a huge part of both, isn't it? And I think the power, I mean, conversations are powerful, aren't they? I mean, having one conversation can completely change your life.
Yeah. You know, like, and it can be on anything as well, right? You can talk on any topic, but if you find yourself in a space where you are two people or a group of people who are open to sit and speak with one another on whatever topic it is, then that can be life-changing.
It can be life-changing. Let me just say hi to everyone who's joining. Hi, Nadia. She says, great topic. I'm excited to have you here, Nadia. Sunish, lovely to see you. Hello, everyone. And one of my favorite topics of discussion. Thank you for joining. And John says, very profound. To anyone else who's joining, hi, please ask us any questions or any comments. We love to hear from you too. So tell us, where do we say the power of conversation? And I mean, it's very simple and it is very powerful, but sometimes, and I know for me in my experience when I was a teenager, and sometimes still now, like I don't know how to get my words out, or I feel blocked, or I feel I just can't speak. You know, it's sometimes quite hard to express. So, like, where do you start with this? And I know you can just say, "Oh, just speak," but sometimes people can't speak.
So I think, I mean, look, I have ADHD, and I also have dyslexia as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So I actually find words quite hard.
Do you?
Yeah. So it's taken me a really, really long time to learn how to articulate myself. And quite often, actually, I find myself in conversations where words drop out of my head. And it does take me quite a long time to remember those words again, or to find the words that it is I'm trying to use. And actually, what I have found really, really useful and helpful in these situations where I'm saying something and then boom, something just disappears. You know, my train of thought goes completely.
Yeah.
Firstly, I tell the person that I'm speaking to how I'm feeling.
Okay.
And I explain the situation that I'm finding myself in. And
Brilliant.
I ask for them to give me the time that I need to be able to pull the conversation back to where I was. And I think that you're right. It's so hard to say to somebody, just speak, because for a multitude of reasons, people might not be comfortable with it, might not be able to, whatever it is. What I always find is the best thing to do in any conversation I'm having is to be completely honest about how I'm feeling and about what I'm experiencing.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. Because then you are showing that, you know, the vulnerability, that you're human, that maybe you haven't got it all figured out, but you're starting to, I mean, I'm finding it hard even to explain myself now, but no, I think, the vulnerability and courage, actually, that takes courage, doesn't it?
Yeah. And if we think about the kind of, you know, what you're saying there's a couple of really important traits that you're picking up on. When we think about, as humans, what we're conditioned to think are admirable traits, right? You've just mentioned courage and vulnerability. So if you're showing both of those things, you know, along with humility as well, which is hugely important. If you're showing those things, then people are more enamored to you. People are more interested in what you have to say. People are more willing to hear you. So actually it becomes a much more fruitful conversation because there are two really engaged parties. So there's loads of things at play when we're having conversations. There are so many things at play.
But and people want to listen. Sorry, people want to listen, don't they? When they see that you're being real for a start, authentic, then I think people want to listen. If you're just being perfect and everything's great, people disconnect, don't they? They get bored.
Yeah, completely. I mean, there are many characters in popular culture that we can point to who, when they are, you know, more like us, you know, more like they're like a normal person. We see the way that people react to that, because the idea of being normal is having flaws or faults, right? That's what we consider to be normal. Like when we think about celebrities, we don't think of them as normal because we don't think of them as having the same flaws or faults that we do. But they become a status that we can't connect to. But when we see certain people in our media, for example, who they have more personable traits because they make mistakes, because they are more honest, because they open up about things, you connect to that person. I see more of myself in that person, and you see their success as a consequence of that.
Oh, definitely. And then exactly. It's about being human, isn't it? So tell us about so you know what you do. So I know your charity, it's amazing. I don't know if you want to tell us a bit about that and how, because I know conversations is a huge part of that, isn't it? Tell us about that and how it all started.
So the New Normal charity really actually started from my barber chair.
Wow.
I was at work one day and this young man walked in who I'd never seen before, and he sat in my chair, and immediately, as soon as he sat in my chair, we started to connect. We're connecting over the way that we dressed, the way that we looked, you know, the kind of the music that we were into, our upbringings, both being incredibly working class and being brought up on football terraces. And after about 20 minutes, this kid, Jack, told me that his dad, who he was talking about, had actually died 2 years previously. And this was a really serendipitous moment because my dad, Steve, only a week before had been diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Wow. Oh my
God.
Yeah.
Here we were, these two kids being really open and vulnerable with each other and honest. And we were connecting really deeply about our dads immediately. You know, neither of us had had a conversation with someone who was similar to us to this point about our dads. And a few years later, after my dad, Steve, died, Jack actually came to me and said, the conversations that we have when we go for dinner, when we go to watch the football, when we go for a beer, whatever it is, the conversations that you and I have, they're so valuable because all we were doing was sitting and just listening. We just gave each other the space to be able to speak. But he said, those conversations, could we have those with other people? And at the time I thought, yeah, sure, why not? Like, that's easy, isn't it? That's straightforward enough. And I said, yeah, of course, we can do that. And we agreed that we were going to ultimately run a peer support group. We didn't really know much beyond that. I mean, I had been in peer support some years before, about 5 years before that.
Yeah.
And I had sort of learned in that peer support space that by opening up and by sharing my story, I could connect with others in that space. They would share their story, and then we would have that commonality, and that commonality was what bonded us and gave us support. And so I suppose Jack and I were looking to do the same thing. We were looking to bring together that commonality that we were finding so that we could support others and ourselves.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And it was that simple. And it is, you know, we're about to run. So we launched our first group in May 2018. We're about to run our 1000th group just
That's
5.5
incredible.
years later. It's amazing to see, because I've also sat on calls, and this is the thing that I love, and this is the thing about conversation that I love.
Yes.
I've sat on calls with people in South Asia, Southeast Asia, in the Middle East, North America, South America, across Europe, and every single time I watch these people connect with others, because they're opening up, because they're speaking about what they're going through, because they're being vulnerable.
Yeah.
They're learning that if they sit in this space and just speak, that they can find the support that they need. And that's how powerful conversation can be. But to be 1,000 meetings in after just such a short period of time shows you as well how needed human connection is.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is the other part of conversation that is so powerful. Conversation doesn't just give us an opportunity to learn, but it connects people. It brings people together.
Yeah.
It creates community.
Yeah.
And in a world where individualistic behavior and individuality is so important and is the driving factor in our societies, in our cultures,
Yeah.
community and commonality is the very thing that actually enriches us, bonds us together, and gives us a sense of belonging.
Yeah. And we're not supposed to be on our own, are we? Human beings, we're supposed to be together with people. And actually, it's interesting that you said about the connection, because you know, with my coaching, I work with teenagers and adults, and I would say 99% of them tell me that they're lonely. And just the fact that they can share it with me, maybe because I think a lot of people who feel lonely, I mean, I feel lonely sometimes, they feel ashamed, don't they? Because it's not something you're just going to maybe tell anyone, because maybe you feel embarrassed about it. But when you're in that safe space you're providing, people can share how they're really feeling. And that's how they connect, isn't it? Because it's okay to put up a front when you're at work or something. You can't always be yourself, but that makes you feel so alone when you're pretending to be someone else just to fit in, doesn't it? And it's I think the loneliness thing is huge. And that actually, when you're lonely, you could get depressed as well.
So we do a lot of work in suicide prevention, which is something that has happened by complete. It's happened just because of the spaces that we provide, essentially. But we now we received this year grant, and we're about to receive another grant as well, to work with people in Northwest London boroughs.
Wow.
And so the meetings that we deliver, we now can train people to hold space in the way that we do. You know, we train people over like a 10-15 hour period. It's a long process, but it's a really worthwhile process. Definitely. And the whole point is that we give people the tools to go back to their communities and then start their own groups. So rather than us keep making groups, it gives people the opportunity to start their own spaces. But this is considered suicide prevention because it's the reduction of loneliness that you're speaking about. So one of the hardest things when we find ourselves in mental health crisis is that feeling of complete isolation.
Oh, yeah.
If you think about how you feel when you're going through trauma, you think you are the only person experiencing that.
It's horrendous.
You're the only person who knows that.
Yeah. It's nothing. Oh God, yeah, it's awful.
No. So that isolation, that is the very thing that we look to reduce, that we look to take that away. You know, we want to put people together where they can share, where they can open up together, where they can feel vulnerable and do what you're talking about. I don't have to have a front. I can be myself here.
Yeah, that feeling as well, especially if you're going through something, feeling misunderstood, when you really want somebody to understand. Like now I've got to the point where I don't mind so much if people don't understand me. Like I validate myself. Of course, I still, not like like when I was a teenager, I craved somebody to just understand what's going on, you know. And because nobody understood, then I made myself be on my own, because I thought, well, nobody understood. I felt more alone when I was with people because nobody understood me. So I'd rather just be on my own. But that's dangerous as well, isn't it? So yeah, the power of conversation. I don't think there's anything as powerful, is there?
It's a good question. I would say no. You know, if you think about conflict resolution,
yes,
you know, in a in a micro or macro, like how do we resolve things? We resolve things through conversation. Like how do we heal? We heal through conversation, through expression ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, these things that we need, like the very simple things. Yeah, I mean, conversation is at the absolute core of all of this.
I think so. And also the conversation with yourself as well. That's important, isn't it? Like how you speak to yourself.
I'm still learning that one. My therapist is doing a fantastic job, but I am still learning that one myself.
I know, it's well, the thing is, that's the thing. That's when you're in it, learning it, then you're on your way. Because I don't think you ever get to the end, do you? You never get to the end.
That I mean, that's an ongoing journey, right? I mean, I've now been in group or in one-to-one therapy for 11 years, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm coming to an end, and then you're like, oh no, there's all of this other stuff that I need to explore now. Yeah, so yeah, no, that will never end, I'm afraid.
It never ends. It never ends. But I think when you're doing the work, well, yeah, that's it. You just have to just keep doing the work, don't you? It's never going to end. But the fact that you're doing the work, I think, me too. It's the same.
Yeah.
You just uncover more and more things, don't you? And Mark said, hi, Mark. Mark says, really fascinating example from Hong Kong. Is that, where English is often used to express feelings of isolation, anxiety. Our team there is developing ways to express these kinds of feelings in Cantonese.
Yeah, Mark is one of our trustees from the
I wondered. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Mark is a very, very good friend of mine. Actually, we met in my barber chair as well. Mark,
oh really?
So I used to work in a barber shop on Portobello Road many years ago, and Mark used to work for the market, and so he came in one day and sat down, and that was 10, 11 years ago, and we haven't managed to get rid of each other. But what he's speaking about there is how we've worked. So not necessarily me. I was privy to seeing that work, but I wasn't really involved in it. How our team in Hong Kong have worked closely with local language experts to develop Cantonese speaking meetings around mental health and bereavement, which has been really amazing. And one of the things, and I'm probably going to say this, and I'll be chastised if I'm wrong here, but one of the things I found really, really interesting was when our team started to work with local speaking people. What I initially was told. So I remember going into an early meeting with them, and the Cantonese speaking host said to me, these words just don't really exist in Cantonese. And then it transpired that the words do exist in Cantonese, but they had never used them in Cantonese.
Wow.
Because they didn't, they weren't words that we used. And so they've worked incredibly hard and really, really diligently to give our hosts the confidence to be able to use their own language, which is just amazing. to kind of see how they're able to develop, the kind of the language and the conversations.
No, well, that's incredible. It's like you're breaking barriers. But what do you mean it wasn't used? Do you mean that they didn't have those conversations?
Yeah, they just didn't have the conversations. So
God.
so it's not that the words don't exist. It's just that they don't have the conversation, so therefore they don't use the words. So so it was really interesting to learn that, because I think the amount of times I've had conversations with people around the world where they say, "Oh, we don't have words like that in our language," and now I'm like, I wonder if those words do exist, if they are there, but people just, the way that people react to certain language around mental health, around well-being, talking about how we feel, like, it's super interesting.
And that's a good point, actually. Even in English language, when I work with clients and even myself, it's only now that I know because I've had training, but, how are you feeling? It's normally good, bad, or fine.
Yeah.
You don't really have a lot of language. We don't really use a lot of language, do we? In everyday conversations.
If you think about, so I always think about the guy who was, in my dad's local, right, when I was a kid. This is whenever I think about somebody saying, "How are you?" I always think about this guy.
Okay.
Because our default answer is, "I'm all right, how are you?"
Yeah.
And that's all people want.
Yes.
Because that's easy, right?
Yes,
that's easy. Because it means I don't have to go any further. Right? We're masters of small talk in this country. We are brilliant at it. But actually, small talk is not beneficial. It doesn't help us. It doesn't get us anywhere.
Talk, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, you can probably guess that I do as well. But if you think about, there was always that one person in my dad's local pub who'd, "Don't ask Mark how he is." Say, "Mark, don't ask Mark how he is," because he'll tell you.
He'll tell you the truth.
He'll go, "Oh, it just goes, oh no, he's always this and always that." And it's that we've embedded in ourselves this thing that we don't want to hear an answer. People don't want to hear an answer. So the more you hear that trope about the man in the pub or the woman down the local shops who, "Oh, don't ask them. They'll tell you how they are." Like, so we've created a culture of not sharing.
Yeah, and not being honest and just people pleasing. Just tell people what they want to hear. Which is what gets you into this mess in the first place, actually, because then you have to be fake, light, and then you're not honest with yourself because you feel like people won't accept it. It causes so many problems, actually.
It causes more problems than good, right? Like that's and actually now what we're seeing is when we talk about this mental health crisis that it is happening all over the world. Let's be clear, there's a mental health crisis all over the world.
Yes.
And that's because we simply do not express ourselves enough. We do not open up. We do not speak enough. And so
I think
when I was in originally in peer support 10, 11 years ago, I was actually in peer support for anger management. So I had grown up on football terraces. I'd grown up really working class. I'd grown up a really violent, aggressive person because that's the type of people I was around. In the late 80s, early 90s.
Who you're around. I mean,
yeah, right. I was brought up in a suburban, poor part of the country where people are violent, people are angry, they're pissed off at the world, and so that's who I was.
wow.
And it's for me, and this was a beautiful moment of realization. About 3 weeks into 18 months of anger management, I was sat and I was thinking, why is he not teaching me how to count to 10 or how to leave a room or how to breathe deeply? Like, he just keeps asking me how I'm feeling and I just keep talking. And I realized that what was happening was that we were just talking, which was giving me more and more emotional capacity. So for me, this is obviously, this is my belief, this is what I feel about myself.
Well, I think it makes sense to me. Yeah.
But the more you talk, the more you create emotional capacity, which makes it easier to respond to things in the moment, which reduces our feelings of anger and frustration in day to day. Obviously, right? Anger is a natural emotion. We feel it. There are certain things that we cannot avoid feeling it about. But if we're giving ourselves more space because we're talking and we're opening up and we're sharing about how we feel, we're actually creating much more space within ourselves to be able to deal with the other things in life.
Wow.
You know, the trivial things or the difficult things or work or whatever it is, we give ourselves space. So when you say, how do you start a conversation, or how do you get somebody or encourage somebody to speak? Well, first and foremost, we have to give somebody the capacity to be able to do that. And then we open up, we're vulnerable, we're honest, you know, these things. So,
Yeah.
you know, talking again, conversation, being open is so key. It's key to everything. It reduces, you know, or allows us, sorry, to create more emotional capacity within ourselves. So,
and it totally makes sense when you think about it, because things have to come out. If you're keeping everything in, of course everything's going to explode.
Right. Like it's really basic stuff, that.
It's so basic. And I remember I heard that our voice as well, our voice heals us. Like when we hear our voice, it actually heals us. There's voice healing, and I didn't even know about that even. I was like, well, that actually makes sense as well, because it would. Of course, we like the sound of our voice. Like there's something, it does something in our body as well. And I was just like, again, as speaking is showing that speaking is good for us.
Yeah. It's you know, it's the power of conversation makes it sound like such a, I don't know, like it's a huge topic, right?
Yeah.
But it's so simple.
I know. Most of the powerful things are actually really, really simple, aren't they, when you think about it? Because even just breathing properly, or taking a deep breath, pausing, like that's simple, but pausing before you react can change everything as well. And that's just pausing. You know, we try to, sometimes we overcomplicate things, don't we? Oh, well, let's do that, let's buy this, let's go here. It's like, no, just actually do nothing. That might actually help, rather than, you know.
We've what I find really interesting about people, about humans, is that we have like created so much complexity within our worlds. Like everything is so, for me, it's unnecessary. I feel it's unnecessary. You know,
I do. Well.
And within that complexity, we've lost so much of the very simple, beautiful things about ourselves as a species. Just gone. And actually, you know, conversation is one of those things I feel that we're losing the art of.
You're right. And the best things are free, actually. We have everything that we need. We just need to connect again with ourselves. But it's so interesting, Ben, and time is running out, but I could talk to you for hours about this. But is there anything else you want to say about the power of conversation? I know you've said a lot. Before we go, and how can people find you?
Well, actually, I just wanted to pick up on, you said that the best things in life are free, but my cats cost me quite a lot of money in food, and they are comfortably the best thing in my world. So I just needed to, if the boys didn't hear me say that, they'd be very upset. But but yeah, I feel like we've covered I feel we've covered the topic well. But how can people find myself and the charity? So the best way is obviously LinkedIn, the New Normal Charity, our website as well, thenewnormalcharity.com, and Instagram, TNN Charity. And you know, we provide peer-to-peer support for bereaved adults and for people in difficult moments with their mental health and well-being. So anyone out there who is I'm hoping this is recorded so that they can watch when I get home.
I'll send you the recording as well.
Yeah, because obviously Dave and the other two Daves will want to watch this.
And what was I going to say? No, thank you so much, Ben. And also the links that you mentioned for your website and Instagram, if you like, maybe put them on the post on LinkedIn so people can just click on it. It'll be easier.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But thank you so much, Ben. And thank you everybody for watching. If you have any questions, please email or message Ben directly or put a message in the comments. That's absolutely fine. And yes, get in touch with Ben if you want to attend one of his meetings. They're absolutely amazing, supportive meetings. But Ben will put a link in the comments as well. And I will see everybody next week. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks. It's a pleasure. Bye.
Bye.